Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio, who are in a battle for second place. Joining me now from Iowa is presidential candidate Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Let's start with breaking news, and you have some good news, and that is that Iowa's biggest newspaper, the Des Moines Register, endorsed you over the weekend, saying this: Senator Marco Rubio has the potential to chart a new direction for the party and perhaps the nation with his message of restoring the American dream. Senator, how big a deal is that for you in Iowa?
Well, what I feel is it's affirmation that our campaign is a serious campaign about solving the problems before this country. Look, Barack Obama has done incredible damage to the United States over the last 7 years. So our next president does need to be someone who's frustrated about that, but it also has to be someone that knows exactly what to do to undo all of this damage. And my whole campaign has been built on that, and on a very fundamental promise, and that is that if we do what needs to be done, if the next president does what needs to be done, I believe this country can be greater than it's ever been, and I believe our children can be the freest and most prosperous Americans that have ever lived. So that's what our campaign is built on. That's why we're happy to have that endorsement. We had a second one here yesterday as well from another newspaper, the Sioux City Journal. So we feel very positive about the momentum that's gaining as we get closer to the caucuses. And as you know from prior experience, caucus goers in Iowa, many make up their mind on the day of the caucus or in the days leading up to it. So we feel like we're gaining momentum at just the right time.
On the other hand, Senator, one of my rules in campaigns is don't pay attention to what politicians say, pay attention to what politicians do. There are reports this week that your campaign has pulled almost $1 million in ads in New Hampshire and Iowa, switching them from 60-second ads to 30-second ads. And there's a story in the paper today that says that your campaign manager told some top supporters to expect a long slog well into April. That sure doesn't sound like somebody who thinks he's going to win the early states.
Well, first of all, this is a long slog because of the number of people running, and it's a very unusual primary and a very unusual nomination cycle. And by the way, we did not cut any ads. We have more ads on television than any candidate in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. We made some strategic choices about shortening the ads because we got better slots for them and at a better price. We're almost looking to save money so we can redeploy it to things that reach voters. And that's what this campaign has to be about in the end. It has to be about convincing the largest number of voters possible that we are the right choice for the Republican Party. And I know this: if I'm our nominee, not only will Republicans be getting a solid conservative who will turn this country around, I will beat Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. And in the end, that is what this is about for Republicans. We cannot allow Hillary Clinton to win. This country cannot afford 4 more years like the last 7.
Meanwhile, Senator, I was shocked to learn this week that you have been the target of more negative ads, more attack ads by your rivals, $20 million in attack ads than any other candidate out there, especially from the so-called establishment candidates, your rivals. And your friend and mentor, Jeb Bush, both his super PAC and his campaign have really gone after you. Take a look.
He ran for Senate saying he opposed amnesty. Then he flipped and worked with liberal Chuck Schumer to co-author the Path to Citizenship bill.
Anti-American dictators like Assad, if they go, I will not shed a tear.
I remain unconvinced that the force proposed here will work.
Senator, why is it that the other so-called establishment candidates, especially Christie and Bush, are ganging up on you? And because I know it's personal, are you disappointed in the way your friend and mentor Jeb Bush is going after you?
No, look, first 2 things. Number one, in many ways, it's an affirmation of what I've been saying, and that is you don't attack a candidate who is not just credible but doesn't have momentum. I mean, that's a lot of money. You only spend it if you feel someone is a threat. So I think, obviously, that affirms what we've been saying, and that is that we have a path here not just to the nomination, but to defeating Hillary Clinton. And the second point I would make about all this is, in the end, I mean, voters are going to vote on someone that they know is going to help turn this country around. You say establishment candidate. Chris, every time I've ever run for anything at this level, I've taken on the establishment. I had to do it when I ran for the Senate. And even now, when I decided to run for president, most of the establishment said to me, you can't run, it's not your turn, you need to wait. I mean, $20 million did not come in $50 increments. This is not grassroots money. This is money from big donors in the establishment who believe that we need to nominate the next person in line and I need to wait my turn. It's part of the process. We knew that going in. I just think that amount of money being spent against us confirms what I've been saying all along, and that is We are a campaign that is gaining momentum and support, and obviously other candidates view that as a threat, and so they're responding. But we'll be fine in the end.
One of the knocks against you, Senator, is that you're the Republican Barack Obama, that you lack the experience to be president. You've been in the Senate for 5+ years, so let me ask you, what do you consider your biggest legislative accomplishment?
Well, first, let me say that the most important job of president is commander-in-chief. Being president is not like being a senator, but it's not like being a governor either. It's a unique office unlike any in the world. And of all, you look at the entire Republican field, no one running for president has more experience or shown better judgment over the last 5 years on the issues of national security than I have. I'm proud of the things we've achieved in my time there. We brought accountability to the VA. I helped lead an effort that got rid of the Obamacare bailout fund. Just a month ago, in a bipartisan way, I helped impose additional sanctions on Hezbollah. And I also have experience and accomplishments as Speaker of the Florida House. But this election's about the future, about what kind of country we are going to leave for our children in the 21st century. And the #1 role of the federal government and the president is to be commander-in-chief and keep us safe. And I will do that. And I've got more experience and shown better judgment on those issues than any of the other candidates in this field.
I want to pick up on one of the accomplishments that you mentioned, and you have said often that you led the effort to end the bailouts, the so-called risk corridors for Obamacare, which would have protected insurance companies that lost money on premiums. Here you are talking about that.
I'm also the only one running for president that's ever done anything against Obamacare. Not a speech, but I actually achieved something. I led the effort, and we got rid of the bailout fund, which may very well lead to the collapse of Obamacare.
But, Senator, while you certainly did speak out on the issue, it was other Republicans who actually put that provision in a spending bill that Obama was forced to sign, which put it into effect. And, in fact, you voted against that spending bill. And the fact checkers at the Washington Post gave you, and we put it up on the screen, 4 Pinocchios for your claim in this regard. How do you respond, sir?
Well, they're wrong. First of all, the reason why it was inserted into that budget to begin with is because I was the first one to raise it, and I spent 1.5 years pushing this issue, communicating with the Speaker's office, communicating with the Majority Leader's office, communicating with my colleagues. For 1.5 years, I was the only one even talking about the risk corridor, the Obamacare bailout. It happened because we led the effort on it. Did someone else physically type it up and insert it in the bill? That's absurd. Maybe, but that's not the issue here. The issue is who led the effort in achieving that. And from everyone that was watching this from the very beginning to the editorials around this country, I believe the New York Times wrote one saying how Marco Rubio has done something that's going to lead to the collapse of Obamacare. No one can dispute that we led the effort. We raised this issue. We pushed this the entire time. And had it not been for our efforts, the Obamacare bailout may very well still be there in law.
All right, let's talk about another controversy involving your record, and that is your tax plan. Let's lay it out. You would establish 3 income tax brackets, topping out at a 35% rate for the highest earners. But some conservatives argue that's still too high. Cruz wants a flat tax rate of 10%. Carson and Paul propose a flat tax rate of just under 15%. And, Senator, the argument is that their plans would do more to promote economic growth than your plan.
They would not, because 2 of those plans you've just mentioned, especially Ted Cruz's, contain something called a VAT, a value-added tax, which is a European-style tax. You find it in Canada as well.
Now,
and it's a tax on businesses.
Let me just interrupt to say, you know, he flatly denies that.
Well, he can deny it. He may not want to call it a VAT, but it works exactly like a value-added tax works. And everybody who's looked at that, who knows about tax policy, agrees with what I'm saying. It is a value-added tax. It is a tax on businesses. Businesses will have to pay a tax on both the money they make, and they will also have to pay a tax on the money they are paying their employees. And this is why Ronald Reagan hated the VAT tax. He said it was a way for government to blindfold the people and grow government. Because the worker no longer is getting the month every 2 weeks a statement with their check showing how much they paid in taxes. Their business is now paying, their employer is now paying the tax, and they're going to get the money to pay that tax by paying their workers less and by charging higher prices. So it's a way to disguise the burden of taxation. You've created a new tax, and a future liberal president and liberal Congress now has multiple taxes can raise. They can still raise the income tax, but they can now also raise the VAT tax. It is a dangerous scheme, and we're not going to have a VAT tax when I'm president. And on my plan, you talk about the high rate. What people leave out is we increased the per-child tax credit for working families. And we allow all businesses, especially S corporations, a large number of Americans paying the top rate, are paying their taxes as a business, through their business, as high as 39.5%. Under my plan, those small businesses, those S corporations and partnerships would only be paying 25% flat. And so my plan actually represents a substantial growth in the economy, but also a substantial savings for the vast and overwhelming majority of Americans.
Senator, we're running out of time, so I'm going to ask you for a quick reaction. As I'm sure you've seen, there are news stories today, the New York Times reporting that billionaire and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is considering a third-party run for president. How would he shake up the race?
Well, I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about Mayor Bloomberg or what he might or might not do. I've met him a couple times, don't know him well, don't agree with his stance on the Second Amendment, on some other issues. I'll wait till he becomes a candidate. If he becomes a candidate, then we'll have a conversation about our differences. If he's just someone out there talking about running for president, well, there's a lot of people that have done that. So right as of now, he's just a private citizen who owns a big company. If he decides to become a candidate, we'll engage in the debate at that time.
Do you feel at a disadvantage when you've got Bloomberg and Trump, who are both billionaires?
I think this is a great country where the son of a bartender and a maid can be running for the same office and have the same opportunity as the son of a millionaire, or for that matter, the son of a president. It's extraordinary. No other country in the world would that be possible. That's why I'm running. I want America to remain that kind of country. Senator
Rubio, thank you. Thanks for your time. And we will see you at the Republican debate this Thursday in Iowa.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Up next, frontrunners Donald